It sold for $9,000. I believe I paid something like $400 for it. Everything I purchased for our processing plant, I purchased very reasonable. I did a lot of shopping and a lot of bargaining. Now the bridge builder's ready to start pouring the shaft. So he's bringing in the forms for the shaft. Now these rocks here are vein rocks that I had to put into a dump truck and haul up the hill, which I eventually did. I'll get this in focus for us here. So here they came in and took the forms off the concrete. They just stripped the forms off of there and laid them off to the side here. Now they didn't tell me that they weren't going to use these forms. And they weren't going to take them out of this hole, and they were going to leave them here for me to carry out on my back on a ladder, which they did. This chain is on the crane right here. It's hooked onto the crane. He could have put those things on a pallet and slung them out of there and got them out of my way. But I had to carry it out of there. So we pumped the water out finally, and there's our shaft, 5 foot by 13 foot. Rectangular shaft, and this is the rebar sticking up out of the concrete to tie into the shaft walls. Now we have to clean this sill off here because that's what we're going to pour is an 18-inch thick wall all the way up to the surface, 85 feet above us, and finish this shaft off. So at this point I wasn't having to do much work because there was a 7-man crew from the bridge builders in there, and I was able to take some more pictures and sort of watch the action. There they had the edge cleaned off now, best they could, and bring in the forms for the shaft itself. And that form fits just like a glove. See how perfect it fit in there. These guys were experts now. They build bridges all over the United States. They know what they're doing. And this is all they had to walk on, was this plank here and a couple across here. I don't think they could walk on this one. That was a supporting plank. But mostly all they walked on this when they poured the concrete. Now they're putting rebars in. Now they put 1-inch rebars vertical, and I believe they put 1/2-inch rebars in horizontal. They were a foot apart, and they just tied them together with wire ties. At this point the bridge builder asked me where I was going to put steel in this shaft, and I said I didn't know I was going to have to put steel in. He said you definitely have to have some steel to work off of. So I opted to put these 4-inch steel channel irons in here, like this, all the way around, and I welded those to these rebars. This is the bridge builders people now working, getting set up to pour. They're putting the outside form pieces on. There they're all set to pour now. They're going to pour concrete right in this space here. So they're going to have an 18-inch thick wall. They're going to use 4,000 pound plus concrete mix, which is a special mix they use for highways. And they're going to pour this thing. It's going to be bound to the footing itself down below with the steel rebars. There's the concrete trucks, and there's the crane slinging the concrete down in that concrete bucket. That's the cable crane now. I have to switch the slides here. Concrete truck driver would fill the buckets for us, so that made it easier. And the crane would of course sling this down to the people down below, and they would open this bottom of this hopper up and drop the concrete into the forms. This is Tri-City Concrete's truck. They poured all the concrete for us. They're a very good company to deal with. There's the bridge builders standing on their little planks there, catching the concrete and dumping it in there and using a vibrator to shake it down around the steel and the rebars. There they completed the pour. Well, this is probably the saddest moment of my life because when they got done here, I said to the men, well, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks when the concrete cures. And he said, what are you talking about? He said, didn't the man tell you? I said, tell me what? He says, we're done, we're through. I said, what do you mean you're through? He said, we quit. I said, well, you can't quit. I says, you've got to make the shaft all the way to the surface. We got 85 foot to go from this point all the way up. You've only gone up 12 feet. So I called the bridge builder and I talked to him about it. He told me the same story. He says, I'm losing money on this job. I make $30,000 a week on a 7-man crew. He says, I'm losing money. He says, I'm done. He says, I'll leave my crane there for you to pour one more pour. So he intended for me, whoops, he intended for me to take over at this point and raise the forms and do the work myself, which I knew nothing about. I didn't know anything about concrete, about rebars, about welding, about acetylene torches, about forms. I didn't know anything. This is our Honda pump. I had rented that from the bridge builder until I had paid for it, and then I owned that pump. So I was pumping water out of this hole constantly. Now I'm 50 foot underwater here, and the water's coming in 250 gallons a minute. So I went to Colton and Dex and I bought some more strong backs and some reinforcing rods. These were already bent. I used them in that bent position. I decided to try and raise the forms and see what I could do. I was very discouraged. I didn't think I was going to do anything here. So I bought an acetylene torch, made it portable. I bought a welder. I tried tying the rebars together. I raised the forms. You can see the dance floor I built up here for myself to stand on. I raised the forms, and I tried tying the rebars together with wires like they did, but they would break when I crawled on them like a ladder, so I had to start welding all these rebars together, all these joints. Well, the first day it was hot out, so I didn't wear a shirt, and I welded all day without a shirt. And I thought as long as I didn't get hit by the sparks, I'd be all right. I didn't realize that the light from the welding would burn my skin. I had third-degree burns all over my chest and shoulders and face and neck. I did have a helmet on, so I didn't burn my face or my eyes that bad. I couldn't sleep for 3 nights. But I did mark all these forms with a marking pen. I raised them, put them back together, and then I found out that I had to weld a 4-foot piece of channel iron to the top of this. I couldn't put a ladder on this because that would bend, so I had to shinny up this thing and hold a 4-foot piece of steel up there and weld it up there above my head while I was up there. After that, I started cutting them off at this point, and then I just weld a long piece onto that and just weld right at my knees there. So I did a lot of learning here. I also learned that you shouldn't put your pants inside of your boots when you're using a acetylene torch because the slag will get in your boots and burn holes in your feet. My left foot's got 4 holes burned down to the bone where the slag got in there one day. There's my favorite shot. Now that shows that wall that's 85 foot deep. Now this is the top of those beams. Now that shaft is 12 foot below this. And the bottom of that shaft is 12 foot below this point. You know, we've already got a 12 foot section and then 3 foot of footing poured there. It's actually 15 foot below this point. So you can see how far down we had dug. That hole was the size of a football field. It's 85 foot deep, excuse me. These are the hose, that's a hose, another hose where I'm pumping water up to wash the rocks, the dirt off the rocks up there if they come out of the vein. There's also, I've got electric power cord coming down there so I can run some equipment down there. I guess to run my welder. Got 220 volts coming down there, and I got 110 volts down there for my drill. I had to get a big disc grinder. I had to run that with 110 volts. My trailer is up here where I live. I'm living right up on the edge of this big hole. We have to build this shaft all the way up to the surface now and fill this hole back in with dirt, and that's what we proceeded to do. So there I've got the rebars in place. I've got to weld these steel channel irons on and everything yet, but I'm just going to have to put the outside of these forms on. I didn't know how. I had to break the forms off the bottom. I didn't know how much to overlap the concrete, so I decided to just overlap it 2 inches. I figured that would be just as good as 2 feet. So I took some 2x6s, bolted to the